Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this tutorial. It is Zeratul out of the StarCraft miniature wargame from Archon Studios using the license by Blizzard Entertainment. You can see here on the turntable I painted mine a little bit more flat on the cape, so a little less shadow depth, and my energy glow from this energy blade is a bit cooler, more into the whitish spectrum than into the yellowish like on the box art. If you like what you see, grab a snack and something to drink, cause it's gonna be a long, bumpy ride. I used airbrush and regular brush strokes, so if this is something for you, keep along. If you are particularly interested in a special section, go into the timeline. Everything is marked, like here we do the airbrush thing, here we paint the skin or the armor and everything else. So what else is to say? Enjoy your time, have fun while painting, and let us start. This is the box, Zeratul from the Protoss faction of the StarCraft tabletop miniature game. This one was available at Spiel in Essen, Germany, and I bought mine on Thursday. This is the clear sprue with the cloaked version. I didn't build it so far, cause I want to paint the grey plastic one, as you can see here. Added some small stones and a bit of sand onto the base, and then I primed the whole thing black. As you can hear, my voice is a bit roughed up still from all this talking over 4 days at the exhibition, but I think it would work out today. I start with the airbrush using a light gray color for a kinda zenithal highlighting. This is in roughly 45 to 55 degrees from the miniature to pick out all the areas where light should hit and give the later applied color a bit more vibrancy at the start, cause if you just spray on black you need many thin layers to build up the color and it would look a bit dull. So give this one some strokes from the airbrush here and there, and we can start with the first color. In this case I started on the cape and used Hexed Lichen from Vallejo Game Air for a good dark violet or purple tone, cause I like mine a bit, not that much of shadow, cause it's a gaming figurine, and if the shadows are too deep, in my opinion, it's like, okay, the surrounding is really dark, why should everything else like the skin tone be that bright? Just a question of personal taste. In this case, we just ride along. This is Hexed Lichen on all the areas where there should be shadow and sprayed in a 35 to 45 degrees from below to hit all these shadow areas. Using a brighter purple, in this case Alien Purple by Vallejo Game Air, using the same technique as on the zenithal highlighting with gray before, 35 to 45 degrees angle to pick out all the areas that are still whitish, grayish, and work a bit into the shadow area to get a light transition here and there. You can build this one up as you like. Maybe I overdid mine, I don't mind, cause the end result looks great, I think. So just some passes here and there. And keep in mind the airbrush is an optional tool. You could do it with the brush, but this would cost so much time. And if you are like me with family and a regular job, this is way better to use the airbrush sometimes. Again, a brighter purple, Lustful Purple by Vallejo Game Air. This is just like a pinkish tone. Just pick out the edges of the cape, farthest from the shadows, and work your way into the surfaces to get a smooth transition. And this is two things. It's a highlight, and also it is something like the fabric is roughed up at the forest edges of the cape, so like a bit damaged, and you can put the emphasis on this with this step. Next up, I use a mix of roughly 50-50 Lustful Purple and Alien Purple to spray in between both of those colors I applied before to get a little bit more transition-y step. Just a light layer, nothing special, to smooth up the transition in between those two colors. Starting on the skin tone, preparing the skin tone, it is blue-gray from Vallejo Model Air. This one is also called medium gray, or US blue gray and US medium gray, depending on the chart you get. This is the same number on Vallejo Model Air, the 71.114, and I apply this color on all the skin areas. Keep in mind, you can mask the cape, or if you are precise enough, you just can spray it onto the areas and repair some slight oversprays later, as we will apply paint by brush. This is nothing I get stuck on my work right now. Just apply the blue-gray in several thin layers for a good coverage, and we go on to the next color. On this regard, it is light blue-gray by Vallejo Model Air as well, and this one is applied on the skin tone from above, a bit like the previously mentioned zenithal highlighting. Leave the shadow areas with the previous color and apply this one in some thin coats, so that the area where the light would hit the most got the most coverage out of this. Sadly, my airbrush is in front of the miniature while applying it. I guess this is a filming technique thing I need to improve. If you like to, and if you like to give me the time to improve so that I can give my real job a little bit less time, maybe you go over to Patreon and sub there to give me a bit of value back for all my work. Preparing the base is Charred Brown by Vallejo Model Air, just a coat or two coats for a good coverage for everything else down there. Of course, the Hydralisk's head should be brown, and my base goes into the brown beige spectrum, so this is a nice color to base coat this one. Just keep in mind to watch out for oversprays on the rest of the miniature and on the feet, as for example, that there will be not that much parts where you need to repair your colors. Next up to the brush, it is Alien Purple. I just repaint the areas where I oversprayed. In this, for example, on all the cloth around the areas where cloth and skin hits. And it's just a bit of slightly diluted, with water diluted color for 2 or 3 coats, so that everything is fine and that the coat is not too thick and doesn't stick out that much. And now I use Drukai Violet, apply a small amount on the miniature, and then feather it out with a damp brush to rework a little bit of these shadow areas here and there and give some color variation back where I think it is too flat for my taste. As you can see here, just a minor amount of Drukai Violet, and then feather it with a damp brush into the surfaces, so that it is more like glazing, not than shading. After the glaze has dried, I apply a Lustful Purple on my wet palette and mix it with Alien Purple in a roughly 1:1 ratio, and with this I pick out the edges. The edges of the cape that are roughed up and these small folds, and paint in some small strokes and dots into the fabric so that it is like roughed up. Maybe he got his cape torn on some thorns or sharp edges, or maybe a zerk hit him here and there and roughed up the fabric of the cape. So it is like a bit of realism for this comical character. And this is on the whole cape, adding a bit of Deshala Lilac into the mix. Previous mix with Deshala Lilac like 1:1 ratio, so in this case it would be about 1 part Deshala, 2 part Lustful and 2 part Alien Purple, roughly, for the color mixing, and doing the same technique again, just a little bit less, as you can see here. The far edges where light would hit and some minor damages in the fabric. Next up, it is time for true Deshala Lilac highlighting. This is just the color thinned down a bit on my wet palette. The same procedure as before, but only on the far edges, and to add some more color variation on the roughed up fabric, because this looks more real. Just to be fair, in the end after filming I took some photos, and then after that I've seen that there are some areas where I got some spillovers and stuff like this, so I repaired them after recording this video for the turntable shots and the thumbnail, and there are some more damages in the fabric painted in as well, so keep that in mind. But it is the same techniques as I've shown you here. Going on with Deshala Lilac with a bit of white scars, so it's roughly 2:1 in the mix. For a brighter color, just go in for the cool color scheme vibe and not the warm route, giving it more of white. Tend to go cooler, giving it a bit of reddish or yellowish tint, will go into the warmer color spectrum. And I want to have this one cool. A cool, calculated killer in the shadows. And as mentioned before, same techniques, just less than before. Mostly the areas where the fabric is roughed up. Next up, to the skin tone, I start with Drakenhof Nightshade as a glaze around areas where there is something else hitting the skin tone. For example, all these small wraps, like leather wraps, or the armor, or maybe sometimes here and there on the border to the fabric parts. And adding some glaze for a light shadow effect in between the fingers and on his head, like these thorny backside of the head and this little crest that's going from the forehead to the back of the head. Just simply apply a bit and go over with a damp brush, so that's more like a glaze. First color for the highlights is Fenrisian Grey, a light bluish grayish color, adding it to the skin as a regular tone, because this is on all these small knuckle parts of the hand or the claw, and on all these small muscle strains on the arm. There are some areas that are left in the previously painted or spray painted colors. This is the shadow color, and this would be the kind of real color, the skin tone color that I want to go for my Protoss. And as you can see here on the forearm, it is keeping the previous color in the shadow and adding some of the Fenrisian Grey here and there, so that you get a good volume of the 3D printed miniature, the 3D designed miniature, to add up on this muscle volume that it looks great. Next up is Blue Horror, a bit more bluish, lighter color, adding this one as a first shadow color. As previously mentioned, all the areas where light would hit from roughly above as I do on all my miniatures, giving all these muscle strains, knuckles and stuff like this more definition. But keep in mind, let the previously spray painted and painted colors showing through, so that there is more volume and more depth to the miniature. Finishing up the skin tone, I use Ulthuan Grey. It is a bright color, grayish, bluish color, close to white, but it's just not white, so not that stark of a contrast, giving some of the muscle strains here and there a final highlight for like maybe he got a little bit of a wetty, sweaty skin, and there is the areas where light would reflect most. I'm not totally sure if Protoss got dry, rough skin or if they got a bit of sweat on the skin, so I guess this one is totally okay for painting it like this. Going on to all the other parts on the miniatures, I start with Dryad Bark for the kind of leather straps and as a base tone for the armor. Simply applied with a fine brush on all the areas. Watch out that you don't overspill the paint, cause cloak and skin are finished. You don't need to do more. If you overspill, don't be harassed by this. You can repair it with the previously applied colors, no problem, but you don't need to do the extra mile. Starting on the armor, I mixed Dryad Bark with a sandy beige tone. This is XV88 by Citadel in roughly a 1:1 ratio, and give this one a pass on all the armor bits, because this would be the base tone for the armor bits. If there is a color that's roughly in this spectrum and you don't need to mix a new color, use this one. I didn't got some in my collection, so I mixed it up and give all the armor panels two thin coats for a good coverage. Next up, I mix a bit of Steel Legion Drab in the mix, so that I got roughly a 1:1 mix, or 33.3% of the mix is each color. Sadly, I left this one out here, but keep this one in mind. This is my first highlight color. The armor is a mix in between bony grown armor and slightly non-metallic metal. I didn't like to paint non-metallic metals, so that I keep in mind in my head. I thought, okay, I go with the route like it's bone, a bit of grown armor, organic, so this would be okay. Keeping that in mind, I apply each and every highlight that it's like coming from above and from his left side. So if you see the miniature in front of you, the right hand is light, and this is the area where I'll go brighter. Next up is pure Steel Legion Drab. Apply it on the edges, like edge highlights, and then paint a bit more into all the surfaces to apply a Medicore highlight, as I like to say it. And don't forget the other side, the left side, where there are some highlights as well. In this case, the right side of the armor is this is the real color of the surface, and on the left side it's like this is already the highlight color due to all the shadows and stuff like this, if you know what I mean. Excuse for my lamp, it flickers sometime. I've seen just right now on the video. I need to grab a new one. Maybe you want to give me the opportunity to get one quick. There is a Patreon link and a give me money for a coffee link into the video description. If you want to spend a dime for my work here, it is highly appreciated. Using the next beige tone in the spectrum, this is Baneblade Brown, painted as before, starting as an edge highlight. using the color on the right hand side for a bit more into the surface, and on the left hand side just for the stark contrasting highlight here and there, so that it is a bit like a faked non-metallic metal, not true non-metallic metal, but you get the deal that it's something in between. Going up the brightness ladder, this is Karak Stone, just as an edge highlight, painting lines and sometimes only dots to give it even a roughed up appeal. Going straight from this is not true metallic metal anymore, because if it's non-metallic metal, if it's non-metallic, you need to go for straight lines. I'm going more into the organic armor area, like here. Next up is Ushabti Bone, picking out some of the highlights here and there on the right hand side, and finishing this one up with the next color. It is Screaming Skull, the brightest sandy beige tone I own so far, and giving it some dots of light reflecting here and there. And then, theoretically, the armor is done. But, as I am a sneaky git, I use glazing to give it more of a different shade in the dark areas and give it more transition, or more into the brownish warm spectrum on some of the areas of the armor. In this case, I prepared the leather straps at first. Or didn't I film this one? I guess it's time for later. So the leather straps are painted with Kadashan flesh tone, so that Dryad Bark is my shadow tone and is left in the shadows. This is the technique for most of my paints. I got the first tone that I apply. This is the shadow tone. The second one is the kind of real color, and everything from there upwards are just highlight colors. Mixing Kadashan flesh tone with Dawnstone for this mentioned first highlight in roughly 2:1, adding a bit of brightness into the leather straps, cause I got an artwork as a reference piece, and there the leather straps going into the coolish gray color spectrum that perfectly fits the rest of my Zeratul appeal. More the dark calculated killer, not this warm cozy color scheme. And just applying this color as the Kadashan flesh tone previously, just a bit less as this one. Going on, I apply another highlight, adding more Dawnstone into the mix. That I am at roughly 1:1 mix ratio. Maybe it's a little bit more Dawnstone. And try to get this color on the edges of all these small leather straps. Cause they are that small, it tends to go a bit more into the area, but I think it doesn't matter that much, cause the leather straps are just a minor detail on the miniature. Final highlight is just Dawnstone, some small dots here and there as a final reflecting highlight on the outer parts of the miniature, or leaning more onto the right hand side as previously mentioned on the organic, not non-metallic metal armor. Keeping in mind that all these steps that I did for the leather straps are applied on these small hair braids, cause on my artwork leather straps and hair braids are nearly the same color. The hair is just a bit more focused on these grayish highlights, so that its overall appearance is more gray than brown. Simple as that. Next up, it's time to prepare all these small gemstones, his glowing eyes, and then going on to the glow of his energy blade. At first I start to go with Lupercal Green to get a feeling if this would be the right base color for all this detail shenanigans, to give an overall feel. Is it the right color? Should I go more yellowish? Should I go more into the whitish spectrum or something like this? And in my mind I get a feeling for this when I apply the base color. So this is the standard technique for me. Just apply it, thinking about it. Is it the right color? Yes or no? And then going on with the motion. For the eyes, I apply the Lupercal Green into the eye sockets, and then later we'll go over with a glazing technique for a light glow, applying the color on the energy blade for a good overall feel, and to complement the later sprayed colors. In this case, I go on for the armor pieces. This is the thing I mentioned previously that I nearly forgot that I recorded it now. This is Agrax Earthshade on a very damp brush for a glazing step, going on the previously mentioned left hand side on the miniature to give some color variation on the organic armor and a bit more depth here and there. And as I called glazing, just to change the color spectrum a bit into the brownish and into the reddish spectrum, applying the same technique on Reikland Flesh Shade, so that is this brownish reddish appearance in the shadows, revamping the darkness and the definition of the parts, because they tended to go up a little bit bright. Giving the shade enough time to dry, it's back to the airbrush. This is USAF Light Gray, the color I used previously for the Venatal highlighting the pre-shading, spraying this one onto the cape and onto the areas surrounding the energy blade, preparing for Scurvy Green. This is the glowing color. Good thing it is a very cool greenish tone, and on the purple, when you apply a thin coat, it tends to go a bit bluish, and this is a nice color transition. Spraying on this color, always keep in mind the part where the light is coming from is the energy blade. So the cloak above the energy blade should be sprayed from below, and the cloak underneath the energy blade should be sprayed from above to get into the kind of cheated light effect that is coming from the blade. I go on with Ghost Green through the airbrush for a bit more of brightness into the center where the light would hit most. And after that, it's time for painting. First up, Sybarit Green. Remember the techniques you did with the lilac stuff on the cape? This is the same technique. It is like the light is hitting the roughed up edges and surfaces and tend to get some color variation and reflection here and there. As the same thing on the armor, there are edge highlights on the armor and, for example, on the hand, but always keep in mind that the edge highlight should be moved towards the source of the light. As well, I paint in some Sybarit Green into the energy blade, dampen it down so that it settles into the recesses. Cause, as well, as previously mentioned, the artwork I use as a reference got a blade that's more bright in the center and nearest the gauntlet, and on the far edges on the energy blade it is a bit darker. Same technique as previously is with this one, Gauze Blaster Green. Picking out all the areas where light would hit underneath the blade from above, above the blade from below, as mentioned previously, to hone in into this effect. And this is the thing that I learned on my Iron Warriors, that you can find a tutorial on my channel as well. It is not hard to get this light effect. Just keep in mind where the light should hit and from which angle it would hit a surface. So the energy blade as well. Apply some paint, dampen brush, push it into the recesses that the brighter color would be the lowest in the layering. Next up, it is gemstones and the eyes. I use Lupergal green again to paint in another coat of this color, mostly on the shoulder where the overspray happened, and then I go on to the eyes and use the same tech with a damp brush to pull the color a bit from the eye's center underneath on the cheekbones, that it's like there are glowing eyes. Now the emerald technique, very simple to explain. Pretend this is a round surface or like an egg. The main color is applied. Now the light hits from the right above angle, and the lowest left corner is the area where the light would exit this gemstone, so there it is brighter, and you go with the motion and give these small crescent moon shapes with brighter colors, in this case Sybarit green. Keep in mind that on the gemstone on the shoulders there is another light source, the energy blade, so the brighter color go on the right lower corner of the gemstone, cause those regular gemstones got the light hitting themselves from right above, the other one from the energy blade, so it's a bit different there, as you can see. Next up, a crescent moon with Gauss Blaster green, let in some of the previously painted colors showing through, and applying this one onto the eyes as well. As I spilled over there a bit, I removed the paint with a damp brush. It's not that big of a deal. Adding Ulthuan Gray to the mix. This one is the highlight color for the part where the light enters the gemstone, so the brightest reflection. You can go with one small dot or two small dots, depending on the size of the gemstone, to give the feeling of, yeah, this is a really smooth, glossy, reflecting surface. And later I got the gemstone on his right shoulder with a greenish highlight to emphasize that is green a light that's hitting the gemstone. For the claws I go with Corvus Black as a base color, so this is an anthracite color, and working my way to brighter tones here and there. The Protoss claws are a bit small. I guess on the Zerg claws and fangs you can go with roughed up chitinous structures where there is maybe a surface damage into the chitin. Here I go with a very, very smooth claws. Going on with Administratum Grey, letting the Corvus Black showing through and let it stay in the shadow areas. Adding up with Dawnstone an even brighter gray, and yes, I use a mix of Vallejo paints and Citadel paints, cause for my painting techniques this is the best way to go. So, the Zeratul itself, or himself, it is finished, rather than the spilled over paints that I mentioned earlier and recognized later while taking photos. Going on to the base, it is a rough dry brushing of Steel Legion Drab. To dry brush, you get some paint onto a flat, long, bristled brush, remove most of the paint on a paper towel, and then go over the surfaces that you want to dry brush, parallel to the surface, and in the opposite direction of the details. So for example, if there is a crack going outwards in a straight line regarding the round shape of the base, you go vertical over it to get all these colors stuck on the highlight parts or on the higher parts. Adding another layer of Baneblade Brown before and preparing the Hydralisk's head with Katashan Flesh Tone. Just paint over the textured surfaces here and there to remove some of the overspray from cloak and from skin tone. Adding up with the first highlight color, it is Mournfang Brown. This is on a very damp brush to dilute the paint a bit, to give a smooth semi-transparent layer that the previous color is showing through. And I don't do that much of these fancy transitioning stuff on the base, cause it's just the base. It adds up to the miniature, but it shouldn't obstruct the miniature or draw your eyes too much to the base rather than Zeratul on top. Same with Skrak Brown, a light orangey brown, heavily diluted for a transparent applying of this color for a good transition here and there on the upmost areas of the crest and all these on these small fang-like pieces, as you can see here. Next up, Deathclaw Brown, even more into the orange spectrum, applying this color as a stark edge highlight onto the areas where light would hit. For example, this sharp edge at his chin or above the jawline, around the eyes, stuff like this, and on all these small scaly edges on his crescent head back there. Is it crescent? No, crowned head? The armor panels on the back of his head. And maybe this would be the color scheme I go for the Zerg later too. But I would apply the first layers up to the kinda Skrak Brown layer with the airbrush if it's only the Zerg model. In this case, I was too afraid to do it cause of possible overspray on Zeratul and work to remove this one. So I go with brush work only. Ungor Flesh for another layer of highlighting. This is our final highlight on the Hydralisk's head. Working out the chin, the area around the eyes and the forehead, and some on the armor plates back there. But keep in mind, not too much, cause Zeratul himself gives a shadow onto the Hydralisk's head, so if Zeratul is not there, the Hydralisk's head would be even brighter brown, cause he gives the base its own shadow, if this makes sense in your opinion. Next up, the claws and teeth. I start with Steel Legion Drab regarding some of the official Blizzard pictures of Hydralisks and some fan-made artworks. The claws and teeth are a bit of a brownish beige appearance, but going into a whitish highlight, so it's like uncolored chitin. Starting with Baneblade Brown as a first layer of highlighting, leaving some of the Steel Legion Drab showing through, focusing the attention more onto the edges with each layer I apply. And the claw got a tip that's more bright and a kind of hooked part on the end of the claw, and I apply the highlights or the focus for the highlights onto the hook and onto the tip of the claw. Another highlight, Rakath Flesh, going more into the whitish beige cool spectrum, applying it as Baneblade Brown previously, leaving the previously applied colors showing through. And with this color I draw some small lines and dots, like the chitin was damaged here and there, into the surfaces, as for example on the cloak previously, so that it would fit the appearance of the miniature. And our final highlight is Pallid Witch Flesh, a really bright off-white color with a minor amount of beige in it for a final highlight, so it looks really, really roughed up here and there. And as I tend to avoid pure white, this is the color with I sheeted white. For example, in your head it looks like, yeah, this is white, but it is not, so it's a bit of sheeting. Adding some lines of Baneblade Brown onto the stones to give it more definition here and there. Just pick out some random edges. This hasn't to be the utmost parts everywhere. And adding tufts. This is the section of tufts, flock and paper plants. I used Gamer Grass, Gale Force 9, or whatever I can grab myself. These are Gamer's Grass dry green 6mm wild patches. Get a bit of super glue onto the base, put on the tuft for some shrubbery. After I finished this one, I added some leaf litter from Gamer's Grass. What is it? I don't know. The company that's sitting in Spain, Green Stuff World, right? Some leaf litter from Green Stuff World you've seen on the turntable shots to emphasize it is like there are trees, leaves are falling on the floor, giving a bit more of texture and detail for the guy, the observer, the guy that observes the miniature. Yeah, the observer. Painting the edge in dried bark, because I like dried bark or brown base edges, and giving it a coat of ultra matte varnish from Vallejo later. And then we are done and good to go for the gaming table. I hope you liked this tutorial and the result, how it's turned out. If you like it, I mentioned it before, it is highly appreciated that you maybe drop a dime for my work here and say, hey, Acheron Studios, look, this Dizzy guy does a good job. So spread the message, spread around the video to people you may think that they like it. And we see us in the next tutorial, whatever and whenever it would be, for StarCraft, for Conquest by Parabellum Wargames, or for Warhammer 40k or Fantasy by Games Workshop. I would like to see you back here, and till then, Dizzy out, keep on wargaming!